And Claudia, also in your Bloomberg Opinion article that you wrote for us, you talk about unemployment system, and you just brought it up right there. What do you think needs to happen, especially when we think about sort of the situation that millions of Americans are in at this point in time in the pandemic?
So the one thing that we know is that CARES Act, the enhancements that they made to unemployment insurance, they made more people eligible, people like gig workers, self-employed, and they added extra weekly benefits. And then they said long-term unemployed will stay with you. The federal government will keep paying weeks after the normal state benefits expire. Those were extended in the package in December. They were only extended through March. That is not enough. The Democrats have a plan to continue it through September. That's the absolute least we should be doing. And in the next package, the infrastructure package, we need to sit down and really seriously think about how to shore up this system, because it is the key to our safety net in recessions, and it is not working.
So, Claudia, given that you have just been at the Fed, Jerome Powell, from the beginning of this crisis, said he didn't really have the tools to hit a wider swath of America, small businesses in particular. And we're in the second round of the PPP program. Really curious about your solutions here on what can the Fed and the government be doing to get that money faster? I mean, could the Fed have done something different?
So I am a big fan of what the Fed has done so far in this crisis. They are not perfect. I think we all have to recognize that their tools are limited. The Fed, by its authority, can only work through nudging around interest rates, and they push around asset prices, step in as lender of last resort. These are the tools they have. Unfortunately, in the low interest rate environment that we are in, the Fed's tools are less effective. The federal government's tools are more effective, right? Like in a low interest rate environment, we should be doing fiscal policy. The reality of the asset-backed purchases the Fed do, they're increasing wealth inequality. You can't benefit from an increase in asset prices if you don't have the asset. So you have to have fiscal policy working with them. We have heard unprecedented strong language from the Fed throughout this crisis. Congress, please do more. And that is so important, and Congress needs to listen. And Jay Powell has continually stepped in, pushed for more. And in his last FOMC meeting press conference, he made really clear, y'all that are worried about inflation, hush, right? Like, we're not going to raise rates, and you have got to back off. We have got to get to full employment. So he has a big platform. There are other people that have big platforms too, that are raising concerns, but let's go. And we need to go, the Fed and Congress together.
So, Claudia, I want to make sure I understand this right, because there have been a lot of conversations over the last few days about concerns of inflation increasing, not just because of the $1.9 trillion bill, but because of low interest rates remaining, and the Fed saying, hey, we're okay with the economy running hot. In fact, our colleague Mike McKee interviewed Dallas Federal Reserve President Robert Kaplan yesterday, and he said, quote, it wouldn't be surprising to see the cyclical elements of inflation build. As the U.S. economy recovers from the coronavirus crisis. Why shouldn't we be concerned about inflation?
So I agree that we should always look out into the future and think about the risks. This is what we did with every Federal Reserve forecast before FOMC meetings. But we thought about the upside and the downside risk, and then we had to assess the balance of risk. Doing too little right now has huge downside risks. They absolutely outweigh doing too much. I don't even think you can do too much right now, but if you want to play out that scenario, okay, there's going to be probably some pickup in inflation for some technical reasons. And, if you're lucky and you get a pop of, pent up spending, but it's going to not be sustained. The Federal Reserve at this point, after decades of promising 2% inflation and not being able to deliver on it, would dance for joy if they saw 2, even for a couple months, and let alone on a sustained basis. So I think we really have to learn the lessons from the Great Recession. And some of those lessons are the models we have used for decades, the rules of thumb. They didn't hold up. We've got to put them to the side. There are other tools, and the realization that if you don't push for recovery for all, get people back on their feet, we pay for that for decades. That is not good policy.
All right. Unfortunately, we have to leave it there, but this was a really fascinating discussion with you two. Claudia Sahm and Sonali Basak, thanks so much for your time this morning.
The biggest stories the moment they happen from around the globe. Subscribe to Bloomberg Quick Take now for insight in an instant.